welcome to the Blindfold Chess Podcast.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Season 4 of the Blindfold Chess Podcast. This week we are looking at one of the strongest players of the 1940s and 50s, a member of the inaugural class of Grandmasters, and someone who some have said was the best player to have never become a world champion, David Bronstein. Bronstein was born in the USSR in present-day Ukraine in 1924. When he was 6, he learned how to play chess from his grandfather. As a teenager, he attended the chess school at the Kiev Palace of Young Pioneers. When he was 15, he played at the Kiev Championship, coming in second with a 9 out of 13 score. The following year, he achieved the Soviet master title at the age of 16 for his second-place finish at the Ukrainian USSR Chess Championship. He had planned on going to university to study mathematics, but those ambitions were halted due to World War II. He was declared unfit for military service due to his poor eyesight, but that doesn't mean he could ignore the war. David Bronstein was a second cousin to the Marxist revolutionist Leon Trotsky, known for being a leader of the Russian Revolution, a commander of the Red Army, and a rival to Joseph Stalin. As a result of the connection, David Bronstein's father was imprisoned and sent to the Gulag for several years. David Bronstein and his mother were forced to leave Kiev and forced into homelessness for a period of time. When they returned to Kiev, his family had been put under surveillance by the secret police. During World War II, Bronstein was tasked with repairing buildings that were destroyed, as well as clerical work. A member of the Soviet secret police, Boris von Stein, let him move in with him in Moscow. He leveraged his political power to support Bronstein's chess efforts. Where Bronstein played in the 1944 USSR Championship in Moscow, he didn't do great, finishing in 15th, but he did defeat Mikhail Botvinnik, who won the tournament and who would become the world champion in a couple of years. The next year, he finished third in that tournament, and that placement earned him a spot on board 10 of the Soviet versus American radio chess match, where the Soviets won 15.5 to 4.5, with Bronstein going 2-0 on board 10. In 1947, he finished the USSR Championship in 5th. In 1948, he finished in a tie for first at the USSR Championship against Alexander Kotov, and in 1949 he repeated the feat by tying for first with Vasily Smyslov. Due to his placement, he qualified for the 1948 interzonal tournament in Sweden, where he won by a full point, qualifying him for the candidates tournament of 1950. In 1950, the International Chess Organization, known as FIDE, drew up formal requirements defining what a master, grandmaster, and other chess titles were. Prior to this, each country had their own terminology and list of requirements. FIDE awarded the title of Grandmaster to 27 people, including Vasily Smyslov, Mikhail Botvinnik, Paul Geras, Yizo Moroksi, Miguel Najdorf, Akiba Rubinstein, and David Bronstein. That same year, FIDE also hosted their first formalized candidates tournament, with the winner of the tournament playing in the World Championship. The tournament started in April of 1950, featuring 10 players from 4 countries, with the USSR having 7 players in the tournament. Bronstein had a polarizing tournament, winning 8 games, losing 8 games, and drawing 2, but that was enough. At the end of those 18 games, he was sitting in a tie for first with Isaac Bolozovsky. To determine who was going to move on, they played a 12-game match starting on July 31st. Bronstein started strong, winning Game 1 and Game 7, but then lost to Game 8 and 11. After the 12 games, they were still tied and had to go to tiebreaks, where Bronstein won Game 2 to advance to the World Championship match, bringing the 5-month candidates tournament to a close. By winning, he took home a $2,500 prize, which is about $35,000 today, and the 27-year-old Bronstein was set to face the 39-year-old world champion Mikhail Botvinnik the following year. The match would be the first to 12.5 points after 24 games. If there was a tie, Mikhail Botvinnik would retain his title. This was a very back-and-forth championship. Bronstein struck first by winning Game 5. Botvinnik rallied back, winning Games 6 and 7. Bronstein tied it in Game 11. Botvinnik pulled back ahead in Game 12. Bronstein tied it in Game 17. Botvinnik pulled back ahead in Game 19. Bronstein tied it again in Game 21. And then Bronstein pulled ahead in Game 22. So he was leading by a point with 2 games left. All Bronstein had to do in the final 2 games was draw, and that he would become the world champion. Unfortunately, possibly due to nerves or pressure, he fumbled in Game 23 and lost a drawn position. As they were tied going into the final game, Bronstein couldn't generate a lot of meaningful action in the position, and the game fizzled into a draw, leading to a match score of 12-12, allowing Mikhail Botvinnik to retain his title. This championship featured 10 decisive games with 5 lead changes where neither player was ahead by more than 1 point. Looking at the games, most of David Bronstein's wins came from deep combinational play, whereas Botvinnik's wins came from outplaying Bronstein in the endgame. Bronstein tried to get back to the World Championship in the next cycle by playing in the 1953 candidates, but finished in second behind Vasily Smyslov. At the 1953 candidates, Bronstein ended up writing a book on that tournament called The Chess Struggle in Practice, which is regarded as one of the best tournament books written to date. And I got a copy for Christmas a couple of years ago. Bronstein would later cite that he was under extreme psychological pressure and even alleged that he and Paul Keres were instructed to draw in order to allow Smyslov to win. At the World Championship that year, Smyslov did the same as Bronstein by drawing 12-12, allowing Mikhail Botvinnik to retain his title once again. Bronstein got another chance in 1955, easily winning his interzonal tournament, but ended up in a 5-way tie for third at the candidates. He tried again at the 1958 interzonal tournament, but he missed qualifying by half a point. The story goes that he was playing Rodolfo Tan Cardoso in the final round, who, by comparison, is a much weaker player, but during the game, a thunderstorm knocked out power, and Bronstein was unable to regain his concentration and ended up losing the game. Moving forward to the 1964 interzonals, he did very well. He finished in 6th with the top 6 qualifying for the candidates. However, due to a FIDE rule, only 3 representatives per country were allowed to advance, meaning the 5th, 6th, and 8th places were skipped, and 9th place was allowed to play in the candidates. His last interzonal tournament was at the age of 49 in 1973, where he finished in 6th. During his quest for the World Championship, he was collecting other strong tournament results. He got second at the USSR Championships in 1957, 1964, and 1965. He was a 6-time winner of the Moscow Championship, and he played for Team USSR in 4 different Olympiads, featuring a 1952 Team Gold and a medal for his Board 3 performance. In 1954, they won Team Gold. 1956, they won Team Gold, and he got a Board 4 medal. In 1958, they got a Team Gold, and he got another Board 4 medal. In total, he played 49 Olympiad games, only losing 1 game. Toward the latter part of his career, he began advocating for speeding up chess by introducing the idea of a time increment after each move. This became so popular that when digital clocks became mainstream, it was a staple feature that was added, the Bronstein time control. As early as 1963, he was also playing against chess computers. He defeated the M20 in a match in Moscow, and in a quote from A Beautiful and Furious World from 1978, he wrote that players would eventually use computers to help gain 500 rating points. Bronstein was all over the chess landscape. He wrote several books, including The Chess Struggle in Practice, 200 Open Games, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, and Bronstein on the King's Indian. He is credited with helping revive the King's Indian at top-level play. He also has the Carl Kahn Bronstein-Larsen variation and the Scandinavian Bronstein variation openings named after him. In 1976, when Viktor Korchnoi defected from the USSR, Bronstein refused to sign a group letter featuring 31 signatures denouncing Korchnoi's defection. As punishment for his non-cooperation, Bronstein's stipend for being a master was suspended, and he was barred from major events for a year, and he was barred from high-class events until the mid-1980s. Even in his older age, he was still a strong chess player. When he was 70, he tied for first at the Hastings Swiss tournament, and then in 2006, he passed away at the age of 82. For today's game, we are going back to the USSR Championship of 1959. David Bronstein versus Nikolai Krogius. Now, if we're ready, let's begin.
One, pawn to e4. Pawn to c5. Two, knight f3. Knight c6. Three, pawn to d4. Pawn c captures d4. Four, knight captures d4. Queen c7. Five, pawn to c4. Knight f6. Six, knight c3. Knight captures e4. Seven, knight d to b5.
Why did white not take the quote-unquote free knight that was on e4? It is playable, but if white plays knight captures on e4, then black can respond with queen to e5, and the knight on d4 and e4 are under attack.
Queen a5. Eight, pawn to b4. Queen captures b4. Nine, bishop d2. Knight captures d2. Ten, knight c7 check. King d8. Eleven, queen captures d2. Rook b8.
Why did black play rook to b8 instead of king to c7? If black takes the free knight, white can play knight to d5 check, and the king will move somewhere, and then white plays knight captures the black queen that is on b4.
Knight 7 to d5. Queen a5. Bishop e2. Pawn to e6. Castle kingside.
Why did white choose to get his king out of the center of the board instead of moving the knight away? This is part of a long-term attack by white. The black king is stuck in the middle of the board. The pawn on d5 acts as a blocker to allow white to possibly check the black king by accessing the g5 square. And white is looking for superior activity with his pieces, like the bishop that is on e2 and his rooks that are on a1 and f1, compared to black, whose light squared bishop is stuck on c8 and the rook is looking awkward on the b8 square.
Pawn e captures d5. Pawn c captures d5. Bishop b4. Rook a to c1. Knight e7. Queen f4. Bishop captures c3. Queen captures b8. Knight captures d5. Bishop f3. Knight b6. Queen f4. Pawn to f6. Queen g3. Pawn to g5. Bishop h5.
Why would white play bishop to h5 here? The bishop was doing a perfectly good job along the a8 to h1 diagonal. Black is trying to get activity for his remaining pieces. Bishop moving to h5 takes away the natural e8 square for the black rook. As an added bonus, by moving the bishop off of the f3 square, white now has a double attack against black's dark square bishop on c3 via the rook on c1 and the queen on g3.
Bishop e5. (23) Pawn to f4. Pawn g captures f4. (24) Queen g7. Pawn to f5. (25) Queen g5 check. Black resigns.
Why did black resign in this position? The black king is stuck on d8. The white rook on c1 cuts off any escape squares via the c file. The bishop on h5 cuts off the e8 square. And the queen hits the e7 and d8 squares. The only move to block checkmate is bishop to f6, which would be captured, resulting in checkmate. Tying for the World Championship, advocating for chess speed, advocating for chess computers, taking a stand when pressured politically and financially, a famous chess author, reviving chess openings, having openings named after him, and complete domination for close to 30 years, it is hard to look anywhere in the game and not see David Bronstein's fingerprints on it. In an interview with Viktor Korchnoi, when asked about Bronstein, Korchnoi said, quote, "He was a genius. What a genius. A genius is somebody ahead of his time, and Bronstein was far ahead of his time. Bronstein demonstrated many ideas that were complete revelations. That's the sign of genius. He understood the game better than anyone from 1945 through 1951." End quote. And that is all that we have for this week. Tune in next time where we will continue to work on our blindfold skills and look at another game of the Masters.